right, so today we're going to be diving into a story that I think you're going to find pretty fascinating.
Yeah, this should be a good one.
Yeah, it's about a guy named Ahmed, and it's from a book called A Muslim's Christian Revelation. And we also have a YouTube transcript of a video where he kind of tells his story.
Yeah.
And the basic idea is this guy, Ahmed, he was a very devout Muslim.
Yes, very much so.
But during a near-death experience, he claims that he encountered Jesus.
Yeah, and this is really interesting because this guy, Ahmed, he was raised from childhood in a devout Muslim family.
Oh, so this wasn't just some casual, he wasn't just a casual Muslim who just went to mosque, once a year or something.
Oh, no. This was like 5 daily prayers, studying the Quran, like the whole 9 yards.
Wow, so he was the real deal.
Yeah, he even debated Christians, used his knowledge of Islam and the Quran to argue against their beliefs.
Wow, so you would think someone like that would be pretty unshakable in his faith, right?
Exactly, you'd think so.
Okay.
But even with his devotion, he did have these moments of doubt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he questioned things like the nature of God and whether his actions were actually enough to get him into heaven.
I think we've all had those moments, right? Where we question even the things that we hold most dear.
Yeah. I think that's a very human experience.
Yeah. So then Ahmed has a heart attack.
Yeah, and that's when things get really interesting.
Oh, boy.
Because while the doctors are, trying to save his life,
yeah,
he has this very vivid out-of-body experience.
Wow. Can you imagine that? Seeing yourself from above? All the doctors working on you?
Yeah, he describes seeing himself on the hospital bed with all the medical personnel rushing around.
Wow. And what was that like for him? Was it frightening?
Yeah.
Or peaceful?
He describes it as being very calm, actually. Like he was just observing the scene unfolding around him.
So he didn't freak out or anything?
No, not at all.
Interesting. So then what?
Well, that's when he notices this light.
A light?
Yeah, and it's not like a harsh or blinding light, but more like...
Like a warm, inviting light.
Exactly. He's drawn to it.
So he wants to go towards it?
Yeah, he feels this pull towards it.
Like a magnetic pull?
Yes, and it's not just a visual thing. It's more like a presence that's calling to him.
Okay, I've got goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful image.
So what does he do? Does he go towards it?
Well, at first he hesitates.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he feels unworthy,
Again.
But the pull is just too strong to ignore. So he starts moving towards it, and as he gets closer, he describes feeling this wave of warmth and peace wash over him.
Wow, it sounds like an incredible experience.
Yeah, and then things take an even more extraordinary turn.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here.
So he steps into the light.
Yeah.
And as he does, the light intensifies.
Okay.
It becomes like alive and vibrant.
Oh, yeah?
And then this figure emerges.
A figure?
Yeah, and this figure radiates an awe-inspiring presence.
Wow, who is it?
As the figure approaches him, he's overwhelmed by this feeling of love and compassion. He musters his courage and asks, "Who are you?"
Okay, come on, spill it already. Who is it?
The figure responds, "I am Jesus."
Whoa, hold on. I need a minute to process that.
Yeah.
So here's this devout Muslim man, and he comes face to face with Jesus. What must have been going through his mind at that moment?
You can imagine the shock, right?
Right.
He doesn't believe it at first.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of throws a wrench into everything he thought he knew, right?
Right. He even protests, saying something like, "That's not possible, you're just a prophet."
So he's still clinging to his Islamic beliefs.
Yeah, but instead of arguing with him, Jesus responds in a really interesting way.
Oh, how so?
He says, "You have many questions, Ahmed, and I am here to help you find the answers."
Wow, there's so much grace in that statement. It's not forceful at all.
Exactly. It's more like an invitation.
Yeah. So what happens next? Does Jesus start preaching at him or something?
No, not at all. He takes a different approach. He starts showing Ahmed visions.
Visions? Like what kind of visions?
Well, first he sees stories from the Quran, like Jesus healing the sick and raising the dead.
Those are stories that Christians and Muslims both believe.
Right, exactly. But now Ahmed is seeing them firsthand.
So it's like going from reading about something to actually experiencing it.
Right, it's a completely different level of understanding.
Yeah, I can see how that would be powerful. But then what?
Then the visions shift.
Okay, how so?
He starts seeing scenes from the Bible.
Scenes that he had previously dismissed as not true.
Exactly, like the Last Supper and Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Wow.
But the most impactful vision of all is the crucifixion.
Oh, wow. That's got to be heavy stuff, especially for someone coming from an Islamic background.
It is. He sees nails the crown of thorns, the pain on Jesus' face.
That he's really feeling the weight of that moment.
Yeah, but he also senses this profound strength and purpose in Jesus' suffering.
Like it wasn't just suffering for the sake of suffering.
Right, it was a deliberate act of love.
And how does Ahmed react to that?
He's overwhelmed. He asks Jesus, why? Why did you do this?
What a profound question.
And Jesus responds, for you. For all of you.
Wow, those 3 words just turn everything upside down, don't they?
They do, because in Islam, the idea is that you earn your way into heaven through good deeds.
Right.
But what Jesus is showing Ahmed here is a completely different concept. It's the concept of grace.
So salvation is a gift, not something you earn.
Exactly. It's a radical shift in thinking for Ahmed.
And I bet it's hard for him to accept.
Oh, absolutely. It goes against everything he's ever believed.
So what happens next? Does he just reject this idea of grace?
Well, to help him understand, Jesus does something really interesting.
What's that?
He starts showing Ahmed passages from the Quran and the Bible side by side.
Oh, wow.
Highlighting prophecies that Ahmed had never fully understood before.
Prophecies about?
About a Messiah, a Savior, a light to the nations.
And they all pointed to Jesus.
Exactly. And Ahmed realizes that he's been missing this all along.
It's like he's seeing his own scriptures with new eyes.
Right. It's a complete paradigm shift.
So what's his reaction to all this?
He's overwhelmed with the realization that he may have been wrong his whole life.
Wow. Talk about an identity crisis.
Yeah, it's a huge moment for him. And Jesus, sensing his turmoil, responds with such gentleness.
What does he say?
He says, "You were searching Ahmed, and now you have found it."
Wow. Those words must have hit him hard.
Yeah, because here's a guy who dedicated his life to seeking truth within Islam.
Right.
And suddenly, he's presented with this entirely different path to God.
So what does he do? Does he embrace this new understanding right away?
Well, that's the thing about these spiritual transformations. They're not always simple or straightforward.
Right.
Ahmed's journey is just beginning, and trust me, there's a lot more to come.
Okay, I am definitely intrigued. We're going to have to pick this up in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh yeah, there's so much more to unpack. We've got heaven, hell, and Ahmed's return to the real world. It's going to get even more intense. So Ahmed's mind is reeling from all these revelations he's had.
Yeah.
And Jesus, recognizing how big of a change this is for Ahmed, extends this invitation to him.
What does he say?
He asks Ahmed, "There is more to see. Will you come with me?"
Wow. What an incredible offer. Like he's giving Ahmed a chance to see what's beyond this life.
Right. And remember, Ahmed's still processing everything that's just happened.
Yeah.
But there's this growing trust he has in Jesus.
Like he senses that Jesus is divine.
Exactly. So despite all the emotions he's feeling, he chooses to follow Jesus.
Okay, I'm hooked. Where do they go?
First, they arrive in heaven.
Heaven. Wow. What's it like?
Ahmed describes it as this incredibly beautiful place.
Like how beautiful are we talking?
Well, he talks about vibrant colors and this overwhelming sense of peace and joy.
Wow. And what about the people there?
He sees people from all walks of life, and they all just radiate pure bliss.
Like no pain, no suffering. Just happiness.
Exactly. It's like a perfect world.
I can see why he'd want to stay there.
He even asks Jesus, "Is this heaven?" Jesus confirms it. He explains that heaven is being in perfect union with God.
Wow. But then he adds this really important detail.
Oh yeah. What's that?
He emphasizes that you don't earn your way into heaven through good deeds alone.
Right, because Ahmed always thought that's how it worked.
Yeah.
But Jesus is showing him that heaven is a gift.
A gift you receive through faith in Jesus.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's that concept of grace again.
Yeah. Which is so different from what Ahmed was taught in Islam.
Right. And it's clear that Ahmed's still struggling with this idea.
So even in heaven, he's wrestling with these theological questions.
Exactly. But then, as he's taking in all the beauty of heaven, the scene suddenly changes.
Oh, how so?
All the warmth and light vanish, and it's replaced by this cold, oppressive darkness.
Oh, wow. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
Where are they now?
It's a complete 180.
Yeah.
The air feels heavy, and Ahmed feels this weight pressing down on him.
And he can tell he's not in heaven anymore.
Right. He starts hearing these faint cries of anguish and despair in the distance.
Oh, man. That's scary. Does he ask Jesus what's going on?
He does, and Jesus explains that they are now in hell.
Hell. So he goes from the ultimate bliss of heaven to that.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast.
I bet Ahmed was pretty freaked out.
He's horrified by the suffering and the emptiness he sees there.
Yeah, I don't blame him. So does he ask Jesus why hell exists?
He does. And Jesus explains that hell isn't some kind of punishment that God inflicts on people.
Whoa.
It's more like the natural consequence of rejecting God's love and grace.
Okay, so it's not God sending people to hell.
No, God offers salvation to everyone, but it's up to each person to accept it.
So we have a choice.
Exactly.
And this is a big shift for Ahmed, right?
Huge. Because he always thought it was about earning God's favor through good deeds.
Yeah.
But now he's seeing that it's about accepting God's love, which is freely offered.
Man, that really changes things. So what's Ahmed's takeaway from experiencing both heaven and hell?
It makes him realize that the choices we make in life have real consequences.
Not just in terms of our actions, but in terms of our relationship with God.
Exactly. And it leads to this pivotal moment in his journey.
Okay, what happens?
Jesus asks Ahmed this really profound question.
What does he say?
He says, "Do you understand now, Ahmed? The choices you make in life matter, not because of what you can earn, but because of the relationship you choose to have with God. Will you accept my gift? Will you trust me to lead you to the Father?"
Wow, that's a lot to process.
Nah.
So what does Ahmed say?
Well, remember, his entire belief system is being challenged.
Right.
But he's seen the reality of heaven and hell.
Yeah.
He's felt the love and peace radiating from Jesus. And I think deep down, he knows what he needs to do.
So what does he say?
He hesitates for a moment,
Right.
but then he looks at Jesus and says, "Yes, I trust you."
Wow. What a powerful moment of surrender.
And as he says those words, the light around them grows even brighter.
It's like all his doubts and fears just melt away.
Exactly. He's finally let go of the need to earn salvation, and he's embraced the gift of grace.
It's a beautiful moment of transformation. But this isn't the end of his story, is it?
No, it's just
Yeah.
the beginning of a new chapter.
Ah.
Because just as Ahmed is basking in this newfound peace, Jesus tells him, "There is more for you to do. You must return and share what you have seen."
Oh, wow. So he can't just stay in this blissful state. He has to go back.
He does. He's been given a mission.
I bet he's conflicted. He's found peace, but now he's being asked to do this really difficult thing.
It's a big responsibility.
So what does he do?
He accepts.
Wow. He's
Yeah.
a brave man. So he goes back to his body.
Yeah. He finds himself back in that hospital room.
What a crazy transition from the wonder of heaven and the terror of hell back to a hospital bed.
I know, it's a lot. But he's a changed man now.
And he's carrying this huge secret.
Right. And the knowledge that his life will never be the same. It's quite a situation he finds himself in, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, talk about a culture shock back in the real world after experiencing heaven and hell. I can't even imagine.
And he's going to be dealing with a lot of complex emotions, too.
Oh, definitely joy from his newfound faith, but also fear about how people will react.
And confusion, too, probably. Trying to reconcile this new understanding of God with everything he was taught growing up.
It's like his whole world has been turned upside down.
Yeah, it's a huge adjustment.
Wow, so one man's experience can have a ripple effect on so many others.
It's amazing. And even within his own family, there's a glimmer of hope.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his younger brother, who was initially very dismissive, starts asking Ahmed about Jesus.
Wow, so maybe there's a chance for reconciliation after all.
It's possible. And it shows that transformation takes time. You can't force it. You just plant the seeds and let them grow.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Ahmed's story, what's the biggest takeaway for you?
For me, it's the power of being open to new ideas, even when they challenge everything we thought we knew.
Yeah, Ahmed's story is a reminder that truth can come from unexpected places.
And that sometimes we have to let go of our old beliefs in order to embrace something new.
And that faith isn't static, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And sometimes that journey takes us down unexpected paths.
It definitely does. And Ahmed's story is an inspiring example of someone who was willing to follow that path wherever it led.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. Thanks for walking us through it.
My pleasure. It's stories like Ahmed's that really make you think about faith and spirituality in a whole new way.
Yeah, it's a reminder that there's always more to learn and discover, and that even in the face of adversity, there's always hope.